hope it is adding value to you and your life as you progress forward. Good to see you, Miss Charlotte Jordan. As always, welcome to this evening show. So again, getting back to the four keys of knowing your self-worth. Now, if you were with us last week, my brother Roland, he kind of sent us off with a good cameo, very good cameo, which really springboarded us into this week's conversation. So if you haven't seen it, please go back and take a look at that and then listen to the entirety of the conversation, but pay close attention to what he said, because again, he set the conditions for what we're going to talk about this evening. Now, to kind of catch us up to everything we talked about up to this point, again, key point number one was understanding the difference between worth and value. Again, Kelly Blue Book gives you the value, but if at the end of the day the vehicle was passed down from my grandfather to my father, then to me, Kelly can't tell me the worth. The worth is intrinsic to me. All right. We talked about inflated persona. Again, people thinking more highly of themselves than what they ought to. Key point number two was about the self-worth theory. The self-worth theory consists of four main points, right? You got effort, you got ability, you have performance, and then you have worth. So those three things together in one equation or another will equate to a person's self-worth. We also talked about cognitive dissonance theory, right? So this is the concern that you will actually experience based upon what is actually going on and the distance from the reality of that thing and how you see yourself as well. So again, cognitive dissonance theory is a thing. And that takes us into key point number three, which was understanding which factors influence my self-worth. At that point, we started talking about the imposter syndrome. This is the thing that people start feeling to where they feel that other people will start viewing them as a fraud. So again, it's not so much as their qualifications are not being qualified for the position that they're holding. It's just that their concern is that people start seeing them as a fraud. And then we started talking about Aristotle's three perspectives of friendship. And these guys laughed at me because I brought Aristotle to the conversation, right? So friendships based upon utility. It is just simply people that you're using for one reason or the other. That's about as plain as I can say it. Friendships based upon pleasure. Again, this is where you guys are sharing a relationship just to do stuff. You're traveling, you're going out to eat, you're going to the club, whatever that looks like. But that's the basis of your relationship. There is no depth or breadth to it. And then last but not least, you have friendships that are based upon virtue. And again, virtue is all about where you're getting into same types of belief systems, things of that nature. This is where depth and breadth of relationships begin to exist. Then people who have relationships based upon virtue, they can experience the pleasure and they can also experience the utility without fear of damaging a relationship. So that brings us to today, where we will talk about key point number four, which is understanding the source of your self-worth. I think this is important because this is where we bring it all together. A lot of times what we end up doing is we will treat the symptom, right? We spend a lot of time treating the symptom, but we never get down to the root cause of the problem. Just like our good friend Jack, we talked about for the past couple of weeks. Jack, going through different types of things on the job, and he wanted a promotion and he didn't get the promotion, and he started going through all types of cognitive dissonance. So what we want to do is get down to the root cause to prevent you from going through cognitive dissonance moving forward. So first thing first, I want to talk about the elephant in the room, self-identity. What is taught versus what is learned. Again, going back to what Roland said last week, I think he said some phenomenal points. And again, you must go back and listen to it because I think it is key. I started to play it, Roland, but I said, no, just let them go back and look at it. I don't want to waste anybody's time. But it was a very well constructed piece. So that being said, self-identity itself, I like to look at it as though how you can identify with yourself. And I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, right? Because we understand what identity is for the most part. However, the key point is that at some point in your life, throughout your developmental years, you get to the point to where you can identify with your authentic nature or not. That's the issue, right? Sometimes we never get down to the point of identifying with our authentic nature. So as this definition scrolls, one of the things I want to point out is that our self-identity is a multifaceted concept that encompasses many different factors. So the first factor I want to bring to the table is personal characteristics and traits, things such as gender, ethnicity, and personality. The second one, social roles and relationships, family, friends, and occupations. And then the next part is cultural and societal influences such as religion, nationality, and socioeconomic status. Last part, life experiences and events. This is where education, travel, and trauma exist. So, gentlemen, the first thing I'm gonna throw at you this afternoon, or this evening, is how does personal characteristics and traits, social roles in relationship, cultural and social societal influences, and life experiences and events shape our identity?
Roland, you muted.
I'm like, I said that's everything, especially to your youth, because as a person growing up, you look to other people to find out what you want to become because you don't really know. So you're looking at people that you think are influential. You're looking at people that you think have it all together. So whatever the societal norms are, you either blend in or you look to other societies and say, man, I want to do that. So when it comes to the traits, the gender, ethnicity, and personality, I think we watch a lot of TV, we like watch a lot of social media, and everybody has that uncle that was just like the coolest dude at the party. He was the coolest dude around, and he had some traits that we as men, we were like, man, I want to be like Uncle Larry, Uncle Larry, a player, or Uncle Larry, a comedian, or Uncle, whatever it is, we gravitated towards that. So you kind of took that on, and even like I would always hear my father speaking through me when I would yell at my kids, and I'm like, man, but it's not like I grew up right there with him, but I could hear his voice. I could hear how he sounds. So it was some traits that were just genetically ingrained in me that I had right off the rip. So I think that's a big thing because we all look to please people as well as ourselves. So we try to gravitate towards what we think or whom we think will be that pleasing person, and we just throw it in ourselves.
I think all of this is pretty much environment. All of this. So you can take this one of two ways. You can look at your environment and say, this is all I got. This is all I have to work for. Like, this is it. This is all I am. Or you can take your environment, and if it's not an environment that you know you want to be in, you can say, I'm better than this. Let me go ahead and do what I need to do and find out what I need to do to get the hell up out of here because I know I don't belong here. You understand what I'm saying? And the reason why I sound like this when I say this is because this is what I have done. I've looked at my environment and I said, I'm better than this. I know I'm better than this. So let me go be better than this. So it's kind of, and like you said, coach, it's an ongoing thing. You never stop. You never stop. But there's always core values that you never break. You understand what I'm saying? So all of this just stems from environment. Yeah.
Man, this is a lot up here. It's a mouthful up here. So I'm gonna really try to narrow my focus because one of the things that I say often that I truly believe because it's evident in my life, right? And I see how it affects other, when you're a leader or well, a leader, period. Even in the military, sometimes you see how a thing I was taught. Let me take that approach. A thing that I was taught when I was young in the military was when you become a non-commissioned officer, remember that UCMJ and 48 56s are a tool, not a weapon. And the mindset behind that teaching was uh you use the counseling statements or you use the UCMJ to kind of refocus a person. And I brought that up because I truly believe the statement, which is that we learn from trauma. So life experiences and events are definitely a heavy tool when it comes to shaping our identity and shaping who we are, because we learn from the things that we go through, negative and positive, right? These things shape us. If I do this thing every day and never receive a punishment, then I find this by experience to be a good act until somebody else finds it to be a negative one, right? Um, and the same thing with negative or with trauma. If I repeat this act and repeatedly I receive repercussions, then only thing that I have to say about this act is that it is negative because it brings about trouble or condemnation, or it brings about a negative reaction. All right. So that also plays a part. And when I think Roland brought up like his father, the things that your parents allow you or don't allow you to do shapes what you believe to be good, bad, or indifferent. So I think that all of these points that you brought out are definitely true, but I wanted to focus there because that is how we learn. If there's no if there's no kickback, then we believe that this is an okay act by experience. Um, but I leave it there because there's a whole lot to go on this.
You're muted, sir.
And I did that to myself. I like how Chris and Twami went there, because you tend to learn or be who you are in whatever said environment is. And then when you get older, you realize, man, I really don't know who I am, because I'm just a bunch of other people and other ideas, but who am I? And I think somebody in the thing said something about it, because when you get older, you come to a point to where you realize, like, hold up, I don't realize what I want, what I like, what I dislike, who I am, because I spent all my life trying to be somebody else, trying to appease other people, and trying to be like they said I should be, instead of nurturing who I really was. So
Right. You
that's
know what everybody else want, but you don't know what
right.
you want. And you've been
Exactly.
living
I
your
know
life
they won't.
basing yourself what above, you know what I'm saying, up off what everybody else wants, instead of saying,
Exactly.
damn, I'm a grown man. Let me go ahead and
And
figure
still
out.
don't know. Yeah.
Can I start trouble with that idea? You got a lot of preachers in the pulpit that can't preach themselves out of wet paper bag just because somebody told them all their life, boy, you got a calling on your life.
See, I'm about to mute my mic.
He went there already. We what? We are literally 17 minutes into this conversation. He
And
already
he
closed.
asked permission. Like he was going, like we could stop him or something.
Exactly. But so listen, you guys are uncovering something, and I don't want to get off of it too soon, because I think if we don't necessarily discuss it in depth, then what ends up happening is that we just gloss over it as though the thing never existed. So going back to that, because Roland, you talked about the cool uncle at the barbecue, and when you started dealing with your children, you started hearing your father through you as you were talking to him. Gaddy, I like what you said with the military, because when you first joined the army, like I did, you didn't know anything about the army. You know what you've seen on TV, you know what other people went through. But at the end of the day, you started learning the army by way of basic training. So they started teaching you what they call the army values and started shaping your character based upon what the army looks like, right? So they started giving you a set of values that they wanted you to have moving forward. That happens to every child as they're growing up. And then when they get older, hopefully they're good values, but let's just be completely honest. Everything you get isn't good, right? Or it may be good. It was just emotionalized from the wrong perspective. So how does that create problems for a young man in my 22, 23, 24-year-old time frame, right? And now all of a sudden I'm saying, hey, I found this young lady I really want to spend some time with. How does that create problems in my life?
You start going through life like We just said based off of what they think you're supposed to do instead of what you're supposed to do to make sure that you are happy. What up, Unc? How are you? Um, this is mm, nope. I'm not doing it. Let me stop.
That's all right. That's all right. Think it out. Think it out.
Yeah. Can you ask that question again?
Yeah. So
Trying to.
again, based upon what was instilled, because think about it, when you were growing up, you were injected with a set of values. And
Mhm.
again, I don't know if it happened the same way based upon the esteemed locations that you guys grew up. But when I grew up, there was something that we had to do every day in school, and that was the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, shaping a mindset, right?
Yeah.
So just not, I'm just using that as an example, but you have to realize everything was shaping your mindset. You're just a little sponge. But then when you become older, you're so fixed on those ideas. Like, how does that create some issues in your life as you get older and start trying to intermingle with other people, friends, relationship, whatever that looks like?
I'm glad you, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding you. Uh it it really does create a barrier. Let's just be honest. Unless you stay where you grew up and never leave, right? And even then it can affect uh your relationships and your intermingling, your communication with other people, because I have a set of ideologies, you have a set of ideologies, and when they don't meet or streamline with each other, it creates friction. And that's true. Uh as far as friendships go, you know, but I think the hard part is, and we don't never give credence to how hard this is, but to accept and still love or still create a relationship with somebody whose ideology is different, whose mindset is different, whose political views are different. Can we still, and the military for a lot of us has shown us that we can, because we went to war and put our life in the hands of other people that didn't believe what we believe, whether it is religious or political or core values or whatever that case may be. We all put on the Army core values for the sake of coming home, right? But but especially when I'm talking, when I think about relationship wise, I think where the trouble comes in, the difference between relationship and friendship is I can be your acquaintance and still not agree with everything you believe. But when you start talking about relationships such as boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, and wife, I think it's very important that we walk into this thing understanding each other's mindset very, and be honest, because that whole concept, we all put on our representatives when we meet someone and we trying to court, or we trying to date them, or trying to whatever with them. But it's important to be honest so that I can make a good conscious decision whether I can move forward with what you believe or how you view life. And I have to be willing to adjust to you if we're going to move forward.
Chris say no. First of
Well,
all,
well,
welcome, gentlemen. Not welcome, but
hold,
I
how
hold,
would
want
you
to
hold,
know?
go
hold on.
somewhere.
Hold on. Let me do your introduction. And now, hailing from the great state of North Carolina. Listen, welcome to the show, my good friend Garfield Martin, also known as the Uncle with the Funk from the Uncle Junior Network. Brother, welcome to this evening's conversation. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing very well.
All right,
Doing
very
well,
good.
gentlemen.
Jump in whenever you feel free, man. Just let these brothers sort out their thoughts. I know Chris is Chris is deliberating right now.
Well, I'm gonna jump in now. And this is kind of, it looks like you're asking the question, maybe reframing it a different way. And if I'm to make sure that I'm clear, it's kind of based off of what was instilled in us. You know what I mean? What's the end result of that kind of sort of, right?
Yeah,
How did this shape our identity?
but not so much as
Well,
how, but some of the issues that you will run
some of the
into.
issues.
Right,
Okay.
right.
All right. So students, kids are in school. My school starts at 8:50. 8:55 in the morning, and they're there until the bell rings at 3:50 in the afternoon. That's a long time. Kids are getting a lot of information. So I think that, that information that they're getting. All right, so I was in a class today and they were talking about dandelions and they were calling dandelions weeds, which, okay, that's fine. But if you actually look up the dandelion plant and look up the nutrients in it and how it's beneficial and how it's edible and how we can eat it, that's two totally different conversations that students are having in school. Not saying that the teacher was bad because she's an excellent, she's a great teacher. You know what I mean? She's teaching one thing, however, there's another part of the same conversation. So what happens is as kids grow up and they start learning more and more information in school, because based off the numbers, they're awake more in school than they are at home with their parents. By the time they get home at 4:30 or so and they go to bed at 8:30, that's like 3 hours. Then you may got an hour and a half in the morning of awake time with your children. The rest of the time, they're in school learning from other students and from teachers with all different types of mindsets and agendas and who knows what else as far as what's going to be taught. So not only just teaching, but how we were taught by our uncles, our aunts, different people, all of those different people like that. And I think one of the things that happens is it can cause confusion, right? Because you're getting one thing over here and you're learning and you're trying to understand and you're getting new information and you're looking at old information and you're comparing it or adding to new information that you have. And then when sometimes you look at that old information, you be like, hold up, now I don't really understand. I'm kind of confused about this. On one hand, you're saying X, Y, and Z, but then when I'm doing research, I'm hearing, or I'm seeing, A, B, and C. So which one is it? And I think that the good thing about the confusion is that if you can come out on the other side with some clarity and make use of the new information that you have and make better decisions and choices going forward, I think it's a good thing. But I just think that one of the things that it causes is confusion.
Man, I like that explanation because I like the fact that you brought in the idea of every child ultimately becomes like a big old pot of stew of ideologies from a number of different people. And then just to add to it, I like the fact you said the uncles, right? Because let's just be honest, we got some sisters and brothers who kind of overstep their boundaries sometimes when it comes down to our kids. And sometimes they would tell your child something that goes outside of something that you're teaching them, right? So they become some recipients of not so much desired information as well, and then they have to go out into success, into society and action those thoughts. And unfortunately, some of those things that they're thinking, some of those things that they now believe or they've seen you do, they can't put into practice, and then they run into several degrees of frustration in conjunction with that. So I appreciate that. Go ahead, Dr. Phil.
Oh, I was just
Oh, I
listening.
thought you was unmuted, but I thought you were ready to jump in.
Hmm.
So I want to compound this because I can't just let it off the hook yet. What role do power and privilege play in shaping our identity?
Man, power and privilege. I think when it comes to power and privilege, I didn't understand power until the military because power allowed me to influence what somebody else, not just being over them, but I could dictate. I could come inspect your house. I can tell you, oh, you can't go here. Oh, you can't do this. So sometimes that can go to people's head. Now, coming up, I looked at power and privilege as something that people that had money had. So if you didn't have money, you really ain't got no power, which in reality you do. And that's the thing. We got to train ourselves not to think that we're powerless when we are, because we think everybody else has the power because they have ownership. No, you can have that same power. It's just how you utilize your resources. We don't utilize our resources properly. So in turn, we kind of neuter ourselves. I say it in a nice way. We neuter ourselves to where we won't have the power to navigate through the same rigors of life as somebody else because we're too busy looking at excuses and making excuses than looking at what we do have and amplifying the positives in that.
Well, I'm going to come from a different angle. Power and privilege in shaping our identities, we find out at a very young age that we don't have either one. We don't have power. We don't have any privileges. We are behind the 8 ball and the 7 ball right out the gate because of our melanin in our skin and the gender we identify as. We are already behind the 8 ball. We already have our image painted out as to what the world thinks we are. You understand what I'm saying? That right there, plus nowadays there's a big push to be something. You understand what I'm saying? That right there is why the game is changing. That right there is why you're seeing more men like us displaying different things than what is seen in the media, because the media, quote unquote, is our identity to society. You understand what I'm saying? How we allow these dudes out here to portray us is how everybody sees us, because everybody sees them. You understand what I'm saying? And for some dumb reason, being seen means you have power. So if I can be like them, I might be able to do something too. The problem is that doesn't represent the men that are actually out here making sure this goddamn infrastructure stays the way that it's supposed to be and we stay functioning. As black men, right out the gate, we have no identity except for the one that we see. We have to create it. And in order to create your identity, you have to have power over your own life and the privilege to be able to go out and do whatever you want to do. That's how I see it. And that's how the youngsters see it too, that I talk to. You understand what I'm saying? It's like they're trying to figure out who they are, but if who they are isn't cool, or if who they are isn't popular, or if who they are isn't seen everywhere, then it's corny and they don't want to do it. You understand what I'm saying?
See, and
So,
I agree with you, Chris, but I'm thinking on I think when I say the power dynamic, I think on a macro level rather than a micro level, because on micro, we all gonna have that view of ourselves, because that's, like you say, from birth, and that's what's always instilled in you. But it also instills in you a defeated attitude about how far you can go. That's why I think collectively we need to come together so that we can realize that, oh, we do have power. It's just, if it's just ones and twos, it's like you shooting a 22 and I got a Uzi.
okay. Well, since you said that, can I say something, please?
You have the floor, sir. Go ahead.
Dear single moms, dear single dads, if you have a son, let that boy experiment. That boy has all the potential in the world. Get out of your ego, because he's supposed to be better than you, because he's supposed to take on your last name. He is your legacy. He is what you leave here. He is what you are going to be remembered by. Fathers, get out of your egos. Go be in that boy's life. Forget what the mama say. That boy needs you. Dear moms, get out the goddamn way. Let these men do what they need to do. These boys need it, and we need more strong men out here. I promise you. We really do. We can't. I know all of them aren't going to come along. We only need a handful. That's it. But for the love of all that is good, let that boy go find out who he is without your in the back of his head. Let that boy go do something. And instead of shooting it down because you can't do it, encourage him. Because like I said on Uncle Junior's network, these boys need encouragement. These boys need guidance. And more importantly, these boys need focus. Get out the way. All right, I'm done. And I'm muting my mic.
Here's what I got to say. What role do power and privilege play in shaping our identities? So I looked up the definitions. Power is the ability to do something or act in a particular way. So it says the ability to to something or act in a particular way. And then it says, especially a faculty or quality. And then I'm also looking at privilege, a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. So here's what I'll use. I'll kind of use my sons as an example. Just growing up, I did not have a lot. My dad worked. My mom didn't. My dad also struggled with some substance abuse. So that meant that some of the money that could have been used in the household wasn't used in the household. So that meant some of the resources, which sometimes can cause privilege, means that it wasn't in there. So I look at my sons, and what I did as a father is I tried to not do that. I tried to swing the pendulum all the way to the other side. So I wanted to, they had Jordans and they had nice clothes and, they always had haircut, you know what I mean? All of these things their entire life. And they always had comfort. And I think that what happens is when you have power and privilege, sometimes it can create a certain level of comfort. Not everybody, but I think that sometimes that's what happens because you don't have to work as hard for certain things. When I grew up, if I wanted, some new jeans and what was them some new Boss jeans or some cross colors, you know what I'm saying, and a new fitted or something like that, like I had to work in order to get that. Whereas for me,
Jordash. Yeah, Jordash, y'all.
I didn't have Jordash. I think back then only females wore Jordashes, and
yeah,
I did
I
have some
had the
blue
cross
jeans.
colors though. I had the
Yeah,
cross colors.
I had the
Jabos,
fake
man.
cross colors. I didn't have no Jabos either. Yeah, you go to like the little store at the corner.
Oh, you had the tough skins?
You can get like some purple jeans, right?
Yeah,
I had purple, yellow, brown, bro.
Right. Carl
Right
Canal.
Hey, my bad, man. I took us off time. Go ahead and continue your
All right,
point, bro. I'm sorry.
let me get back.
He talking about Carl Canal now. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that I had to work for everything that I wanted, and for me, my thought was that I didn't, and then I got picked on for not having good clothes and stuff like this, and I was like, heck no, I don't want my kids to be like that. So what happened was, I think that because I had a certain amount of resources, I think that they kind of their identity thought that they had more power and privilege than actually they probably thought they had the power, and they probably did have some of the privilege. You know what I mean? Just because they didn't have to go to school and get picked on and joked and clowned about haircuts and shoes and clothes like I did. So I think, to kind of sum up all my thoughts, that I think that it can create a level of comfort which may keep you stagnant and not pressing towards your goals.
I like that. I used to have.
I forgot something.
Go ahead, Chris.
Quit spoiling these boys. They need their asses whooped. They need to know what it's like to lose. Let them lose. Let them lose. Let them deal with it and get better. Quit collaring these boys. To your point, Roland, yes, they are soft. They are. Because they don't know how it is to take a real ass whooping. They don't. And these boys need to get their asses whooped. Not in a I'm going to beat you up kind of way, but in a I lost. How do I deal with this loss, and how do I get better?
I love it.
We must be better. We don't have a choice now.
Yeah. I had this group that I was mentoring, and then one of the kids that I used to cut his hair. I used to make sure he was doing right in school and everything. And I know I gave the boy about 5, 6 pair of Jordans because his mother didn't have it. So I'm like, okay, you about my size, and I can't wear them all at the same time. So but then when I seen he was just like he'd just want to kick it with me, like, hey, can I get that pair of shoes? And I can't say it here, but I say nah, and I probably add a word after that. I'm like, you got to work for everything you need. Everything you get, you got to work for. I gave you that to get you a start, but now what you gonna do? Gonna cut my grass? You gonna wash my cars? You got to do something. Men got to do something. You just can't go through life expecting a handout. And what happens is, and this is true, I know it to be true because my grandmother used to do it with me. Boys will have their hands out. If a woman got given it, and then what he gonna do? He gonna find himself a lady friend of his that's giving him, that has a place, that taking care of him,
He
buying him
the
stuff.
wife.
So, and that's pretty much pimping. That's pimping in a nutshell. You utilizing somebody else, you ain't doing nothing. You receiving her gain. So now, men, if you don't have it, just like if you don't have yourself together, you don't deserve a woman. You don't deserve a wife. You don't make no babies because all you're doing is making cute dumb babies. So don't even do that.
Let's see, Roland, you had me until you said deserve. You
They don't
had me
deserve it.
there. When you said don't have any babies, I wholeheartedly agree with that. However, yes, we need to be in the building phase and we need to focus on building. But if there's someone there that's going to be us as we build, she needs to come along with us. You understand what I'm saying? So to say deserve, I don't know about that. I can understand where you're coming from because if you don't have it, you really shouldn't be out here looking for it. But if it fall in your lap and she winds up being the helpmeet that she's supposed to be to get you there, she
Help.
got to come. She's coming. Listen, man, she coming with me.
I'm saying help is cool. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? She coming with me. And I'm not saying help like fund.
No,
You
I'm saying
understand what
help.
I'm saying?
I'm with you. Assistance. Assist.
So I kind of understand what you're saying. I agree with you. It's just, as for me, I don't believe that it is my place to tell people what they do and don't deserve. But I completely understand where you're coming from and I understand your mindset behind it. For real. I get that.
So let me jump in real quick because you guys are on fire and they've already said it in the chat. But I got a few things I want to add to this in conjunction with what you guys are saying. But I also want to recognize these amazing people in the chats, man, because they are literally laying down some science. So first and foremost, again, welcome to the show, Adrian Thomas, Ravonda Jackson, Emma Foster. Good to see you, Sharina Fraser Miller. Rochelle Jones, Cassandra, I think I spoke with you already. Brunner Harriet, I hope I said that right. If I did not, please forgive me. I'm from the great state of Georgia, so blame them.
That's my little cousin.
Okay, what's up, the little cuz? Hey, Liz, good to see you. Okay, great. I think I've caught everybody, and if I missed you, I do apologize. Get in the chat and just say hello so we can shout you out. Also, I want to appreciate our super supporters: Bernadette Simmons, Ravonda Jackson, Sharina Fraser Miller, and Miss Teresa Austin. Greatly appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing, and it is always good to be appreciated by you. Getting back to this amazing topic, because man, you guys, I know I kind of did it. I did it intentionally because I just started watching Perry Mason. I don't know if you guys remember, my grandfather used to watch Perry Mason. So I'm watching the newer version, which comes on HBO Max. And one of the things I greatly appreciate about one of his closing remarks, he talked about truth and he talks about justice. And he said, we got to get to the truth so we can get after justice. He said, so allow the truth to lead you to justice. my, I'm saying this because I believe one of the biggest problems that we encounter, to include our hero Jack from the previous two episodes, is that because we have a what I tend to call a faulty identity, like whatever the identity is, it is that, but it is not an accurate depiction of your authentic self. Therefore, you struggle. And then we started talking about this whole thing called power. And if you kind of follow in the leadership realm, there are 7 types of power, and it's broken down into 2 categories. You have legitimate power, and then you have personal power. I'm gonna say it again. Legitimate, I'm sorry, not legitimate. Legitimate is one. It's formal power and personal power. And under formal power is where legitimate power comes in. So I say all of that to say that I believe in most cases, you have either power or the illusion of power. We have been deceived for a majority of our life with the illusion of power because each individual on their own does not have power. Let me help you to understand what I'm talking about. When we go back and look at these things we talked about, right? Personal characteristics, gender wields you no power, ethnicity wields you no power, your personality wields you no power, your family history, background, whatever it looks like, whatever your last name is not power, your social status, and you are definitely not your occupation. So when I ask you in 1 and 2 sentences or less, describe yourself, if you start off by saying your ethnic group, your gender, or your occupation, that is the perception of power. The only reason you're using that is because you're looking for some sort of accolade to be brought to the table based upon who you are or what you've accomplished, right? Especially here, education. You think about it, when you meet people who've achieved certain levels, the first thing they put out their mouth, oh, I am Dr. Such and such. I don't care. I'm just going to be completely transparent. I don't care if you are a doctor, whether you're a medical doctor, PhD, or a business, or you have a doctorate. I don't really care because that has no bearing on who you are. That's just what you've done. And too many times, what we do is we want to put our accolades up front hoping that someone will grandfather us to the position of power. That's the issue. And the only reason we do that is because we're not comfortable in our authentic nature. These things are what we consider to be outliers. These things are either accomplishments or something that was given to you that you did absolutely nothing to earn. The fact that I'm a male, I had no bearing in that. The fact that my skin complexion is what it is, I had absolutely nothing to do with it. And so a lot of times we want to put that at the forefront and say, this is who I am. Wrong. You are human first. So human, then your gender, then your ethnicity. But what we do is we view the world backwards. We want to go the opposite direction. We want person to see my ethnicity, then my gender, then the fact that I'm human. Why? Because I want to be deemed special. So the smaller I can make the pool, then the more special I can become, simply because I want to be segregated, which makes absolutely no sense to me. So the more segregated I can become, then what ends up happening is that I become more separated. And the more separated I become, now you can look at me as being special. That's my thoughts. So let me
What text did
see.
you come from, bro?
Say again?
What text was that?
What you mean?
I ain't hear the scripture. You done preached the whole sermon. I ain't
Lisa,
know.
Lisa
No.
put the scripture. Lisa put
No,
the scripture up there already.
no, Chris preached the sermon earlier. See?
Okay.
I was just piggybacking off what he did. So man, listen, I want to make sure I catch everybody because man, I want to make sure. Yeah, listen, I appreciate you guys in the chat because you guys are awesome and we value you every time you show up. So again, wherever you are, go ahead and hit the like button because we like power. No, I'm joking. We want we. I'm joking. Just go ahead and hit the like button whoever you
In the
are, right?
respect.
We talking about the show.
Hey man, we're talking
Power
about
the
the
show.
show. Power the show, absolutely. So yeah, go ahead and hit the like button as we transition to the next topic. And again, I want to make sure I acknowledge everybody. So again, I'm looking the illusion of of inclusion. Man, that is awesome. I love that statement. Thank you, Miss Foster, for putting that up there. So that is awesome. If
Absolutely.
you really think into what that really means, oh my goodness, that's a whole nother conversation. And
That's
I
a
think
rabbit hole.
that is. And I think I may talk with the fellas and see if we can do a conversation on the 7 types of power and how it relates to our dynamics overall, and we can kind of narrow that down in our own individual conversation. Okay, moving on to self-concept. So again, it's exactly what it is, right? So based upon my identity, I have a conceptual idea of who I really am, right? And I think that's kind of like where we're looking at when it comes down to self-concept. Now I'm just going to keep the definition rolling so we can keep the conversation going. So with that being said, gentlemen, how does our self-concept shape the way that you perceive and interact with the world around us?
Trying to let y'all get a voice in. Go ahead.
I know my brother beside me is kind of quiet tonight. You all right, bro? I want to reach out.
Man, I couldn't get in on that last segment.
That's why you got to jump in, man.
I told y'all I was shutting up.
Bring it in. Give me a hug. No, I'm joking. Go ahead.
These jokers was like, ain't nobody talking tonight. It's just me.
Hey man, I love it.
Me and Chris was monkey in the middle, man. Y'all got to catch it.
I wasn't trying to get
Nah,
burned
ahead,
by no heat, no flamethrowers. Nah, man. But I was really reading the definition, so I didn't run off to the wrong direction, right? But how does self-conception, the way we perceive and interact with the world around us, it plays a major role, right? Because you have some who perceive themselves to be less than what they should perceive themselves, and then you have those who have a concept or a perception of themselves that is greater than it ought. And you can always tell when someone thinks that they're bigger than what their abilities are, because when they jump out there, they fall flat on their face. But the problem is, a lot of times people don't realize they're falling, and they just keep on falling. So it's important, I believe, that we have a circle around us that's honest and that's true, that's going to let us know, hey, that's not a good idea. Hey, that's a great idea. Hey, just do it. Stop worrying. When your brother come and say, I ain't got no input on this topic because I'm just gonna sit and learn today, and you like, come on, bro, you got a lot to give. And I'm being petty. I know I'm being petty, bro. I love you, bro.
Well. But, so I kind of want to hang out just for a second, if we can, because you brought in a good concept, and I want everybody to pay attention because this definition balances conscious versus subconscious. And you guys already know, if it's ingrained in me at the subconscious level, you telling me that I'm better than how I'm behaving, or I'm a little bit too high than what I really should be, that's not going to sit well with me, and I may push back on that. So what do we do when that happens? Not just you, anybody.
Yeah.
You stop.
Say more.
You have to stop. You can say it until you blue in the face, but if they don't believe it, then you're just speaking to the choir, quote unquote. You say it and then you let it go. Because what happens is it festers. It stays in the back. Coach said, I'm better than this. But my brain is telling me I'm just stuck here. But coach say I'm better than this. And then there's the fight. There's the fight between, damn, coach said that I'm better than this. So let me go see if I really am better than this. You got that. And then you also have, you need to stay here because this is comfortable and this is safe. If you go that way, you might get hurt. But if you stay here, you'll be safe. My cousin used to say this at every graduation speech that he has ever done at our church when I used to go to church. He says, we fight a war out there against them, and we fight a war against our upbringing, and then we fight a civil war between our old self and the self that we're starting to become. A lot of people don't win that war. A lot of people stay comfortable because it's comfortable, it's safe. But then you got a handful of people that are like, I'm better than this. You understand what I'm saying? So, and coach think I'm better than this. So if he sees something in me, let me explore that. So
Oh, my bad.
especially with these boys, man. Especially with these boys. You have one person telling you one thing and then somebody out of nowhere say, "Hey man, nah, this ain't that. You better than this."
Hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? And then there's the fight.
You geared to say something, Roland?
You
Oh,
ain't
you
said nothing, so go ahead.
oh,
I'm gonna remember.
all right. So I'm about to put some of my business out on the street. All right. So about a week and a half or so ago, it was after a show. Hold on. I heard some over talk. Can y'all still hear me?
I got you. You good? Go ahead.
Okay. So about a week and something ago, I'd made a negative comment and coach said something to me about it, right? Wednesday, I think, I made another negative comment, kind of relating to the same thing. And then Roland had said something about it, right? So what I did with that and what I'm doing with that is I'm processing that. Like they called me out on something that I already knew that I was already kind of sort of working on, something that I was already struggling with anyway. And it's something I ain't gonna put everything out in the street, I'll keep some of it for us. You know what I mean? But the gist of it is that, what I mean, these two gentlemen up here, these two guys that I'm up here on this panel with twice a week, you know what I mean, were able to call me out on something and I didn't have a problem with it. And what I can do with that information now is I can just say, screw these jokers and throw it away, or I can use that information, see how I can make adjustments maybe in my life and then come out on the better side of that. These gentlemen, I trust them. I trust their opinion. I trust if they see something in me that what they're saying is for my benefit. You know what I mean? And that's one of the beauties of having a wolf pack or having men and being surrounded by men is that we are supposed to be able to, or we should be able to call each other out on certain things, especially when it's going to make us better.
I like that, and I appreciate it. And what I was gonna get to is a lot of us men, folk, we all say we have it all together. We think we're playing checkers or chess, and you really ain't even playing the game. And when we look at a lot of people don't know that chess, yeah, I got my pieces. Chess, I got it
This
right here.
man and his props.
Got my props.
I was
But
thinking the same thing. Last time it was
tell them.
stripper money. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, whatever. But when you're playing chess, you got to realize that each people think, oh, since I'm a pawn, I'm expendable. A lot of us are pawns, and we don't realize that the objective ain't for you not to get killed. The objective is to win the game. Sometimes you got to give up a pawn. You got to give up, I'm going to say your little horsey man for some people, but you got to give up these things and you got to play the game of strategy. And we don't want to strategize. We just want to go through life in a comfort field cocoon, thinking if I go this route, I won't get hurt. I won't get hurt if I never take a chance, if I never try to. I'm telling you, you should try to fail. Do whatever you're doing and try to fail. Get out there, and if you didn't succeed, you learn, and then keep trying. Keep trying. But what we do is we fall back into old routines and comfort zones, and we say, "Well, I know who I am in this vein, so I will stay right here and be the biggest little fish in this little pond because I know it," instead of trying to go where you can actually accomplish something, make a difference in somebody else's life as well as your own.
I'm gonna take another approach, right? It's kind of like when you brush your hair, and see, I got my brush right here.
You trying to be funny?
I promise to God, I love it here. You guys are amazing.
Oh, let me get serious for real. For real, I got a point. Nah. So I think everybody says a correct piece to the puzzle, right? And I think for me, it gets kind of dangerous because if you correct me or if you show me that I'm better in an area than I'm showing or that I need help in an area, the the correct response I believe would be to sit back and self-analyze the situation, the purpose behind my reaction, because it can be a misreading because I didn't articulate what I was saying properly, or I didn't uh I didn't perform it in the way that I wanted it to come forth, so therefore it was misunderstood, whatever the case may be. But in that time of internalizing and thinking on the situation that's at hand, and if they are correct, what I think it gets where I think it gets dangerous is I can begin to rely on their opinion too much in that area that I no longer operate as true as my true self when it comes to that situation. So I think that it's necessary to sit back, to analyze the situation, to make the necessary changes that you need to make. But you have to also get understanding. If coach corrects me, I need to say, hey, coach, because some situations are different. I need to be able to say, hey, coach, what is the message that I'm missing, or that you're trying to get me to convey with this correction or with this positive feedback, right? And then I have more understanding of what I'm changing, and I'm not just walking on, hey, coach, should I do this? Hey, coach, should I do this? And that gets real dangerous, and because it affects when you realize that you were messing up at something that you thought you were doing good at, it can begin to affect your self-esteem, which then causes you to not be confident when you move forward. So you got to be able to make necessary adjustments while remaining control of your self-esteem. It took me a long time to get to where I was going, but I got there, right? Because I was laughing, I had to get it back together so I could articulate properly. But we can't lose that, and I think that's where it gets dangerous, right? So all these elements are true, but get proper understanding so you don't lose sight of your own confidence
You
and
know what
keep
all of
driving
this
forward.
I'm sorry. You know what all of this boils down to? Everything that I said earlier about these boys needing to lose. The only way that you are going to grow is if you lose. You have to. You gotta lose. That's the only way you'll learn. This is why, listen, I call myself the angry guy, but really this is just passion. Because all of the things that I am saying out loud are things that I wish I would have learned and somebody would have told me 20 years ago. This is all information that these boys need, especially if you growing up with just your mama. And like I always say, this is not diminishing the mama's purpose, but this is actually showing the extreme amount of importance of a male, sturdy figure that you trust in that boy's life. Seriously. And like you said, Timothy, you have to learn the difference between constructive criticism and hating. You know the difference. Constructive criticism actually puts a bug in your head that says, okay, maybe I should rethink this and map this out. You know, Coach and I used to have a talk, and he used to always do this thing to me. And it got my wheels turning. I would explain the situation to him, and he would make me map it out to him without any kind of like yes or no. And then at the end of it, they'd be like, do you think this is something that you should do? Do you really feel like this would be conducive to your growth? We need more of that. Ask those questions.
A great.
If oh,
I
sorry.
my bad. Now, I just want to say, because when you said that, it made me think about a conversation I had with Coach. Right, I don't want to be giving out no free tips, Coach. You know what I mean? So mute me if this is a billable hours, right? Nah, but I brought to him an idea, and he asked me two questions after he read my idea, and his two questions were, where did this thought stem from, and what is the overall message you're trying to convey? That helped me really start to look, because I had to do was take that idea, sit back and say, this is really where I'm trying to go. So do I have the proper blueprint to get there, or am I just have a bunch of different dots leading different directions? And so to your point, those questions that cause you to not only evaluate yourself, but evaluate what you're trying to do properly. Because when he asked that question, I was like, man, I ain't never had nobody do that. I thought you were just gonna tell me it was good or bad.
Now let me ask you a question. When you finished it, didn't it feel better that it was your idea and it wasn't something that coach led you to?
Man, here's the crazy thing. It got bigger, much bigger since when he asked me the question. I'm still not done with it now.
See,
I thought I was gonna start recording last night, man. I was like, wait, I ain't got my notes right now.
Was it a
I'm
Jedi
joking.
mind trick?
no, that is the power of asking questions and actually having enough respect for the person that you're talking to and understand that the person that you're talking to is actually smart enough to map this out on their own. That's what it is. It's respect, and it's you smarter than you think you are. You don't need to call me every 5 seconds when you need a life-changing decision. You can sit your ass down at your dining room table, put a pen to paper and map all of this out and figure it out on your own, and then come to me with the result after you do it, so that way I can say I'm proud of you. You can do that. You understand what I'm saying? That's how little these boys need. That is small and it is free. You don't have to pay nothing for that. Do you realize how different our community would be if we did more of that to the boys and let the boys understand that it's your idea? I'm just helping you map it out. I'm asking you questions so that way you can think, because I know you smarter than what you think you are, and you smarter than what your environment is, and you smarter than what that woman or that man told you was. Let me stop, man. Let me stop.
I want to jump in. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Uncle Junior.
I want to I appreciate what Roland said, talking about Coach getting his fouls, and they are well deserved. And I'm going to plug Coach, and one of the things that he does, and that's coaching. He says he calls himself the mindset coach, but that's not just his title. That's also, he's real big into mindset and understanding. And what you just heard Christopher talk about is exactly what coaching is about. You know what I mean? That's what having a wolf pack is about. It's about having a circle, having people that you can that can hold you accountable, and vice versa. It's coaching is like Chris was just saying, it's about being able to let you think through the problem on your own. A lot of times we already have the problem, but we just don't know how to map it out. And that's the power sometimes of having a coach in your life to be able to do those things. So I just wanted to shout out Coach and just the coaching profession in general, and how for a lot of men and women it can be very effective, and it can really push you and get you to a different level in your life. And then when you add on a support team that's really great, bro, you don't have a choice but to win. Like, you can't fail. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people say, I can't win for losing. Nah, you won't lose for winning. You know what I mean? When you got a healthy combination of mindset, coaching, good people around you, support, like, it ain't nothing like it.
And he says that as he jumps up and down like Denzel Washington on Training Day, saying he can't lose. Listen, I want to. So I thank everybody for saying that. I really do. In the moment of transparency for me, I had a hard time just being able to hear people say good things about me. That's why, Chris, when you said that, I could relate to that. I used to struggle with it because I wasn't raised that way. This
You
is the
sound like
reason.
me now.
Right. This is the reason why we're talking about identity, why we're talking about self concept, about to start talking about self esteem. And then the last piece is going to be social self. You have to learn to grow from that faulty identity. And again, you have to realize people can only give you what they have. So you got to learn to grow from that identity to a higher concept of yourself based upon a renewed identity, which is what it's all about. So I thank you guys for saying that. And again, I thank everybody in the chats as well. But again, that was a point for me. I had to get to the point where I could receive those flowers, Roland. So thank you for that. Shout out Queen V. Good to see you and welcome to the show. Man, you guys were so much in the chats here. Michelle Ray was talking about character speaks for you. Absolutely. Liz was saying failure, it leads to success. Michelle said the chess is strategic, but the queen is not the objective. You kill the king and the game is over. Just want to make sure I say that. I think she said that jokingly. Um, I think I love failing. If I don't fail, I'm not learning. Queen V said your self worth is the way you see yourself and how and the way you see others. I can definitely get with that. Let's see. Emma Foster said failure is the best teacher of perseverance. Absolutely, definitely agree with that. I'm trying to get down to a question, but not skip over all these high-powered statements. Self-assessing takes a level of humility above us. Accepting or rejecting another perspective besides your own is truly a sign of maturity and humility. 100% spot on. I can't stress that enough. You have to push yourself down to hear somebody say something that may not sound good about you and not attack that person simply because they didn't say something that lines up with your ego. That's the hardest thing to do. Emma says that the male figures are important, but the empath in me want to demolish the strong black man persona. It can be more harmful than it is helpful. It can create emotionally disassociated men. You there is there is no lie in this statement, Emma. However, what I would add too is this is not 100% truth either, which you have to understand that a strong black man who understands who he is in the Lord will not be that one that becomes harmful to you. That individual who has a clear identity of himself through the concept of being created in his image and after his likeness realizes that the woman is actually a part of him. So that's what it means to come together as one. Tomorrow morning, I'm gonna spend a great deal of time talking about that because ideally, tomorrow is all about love. Tomorrow morning at 10:30, myself and Onita will be talking about love. So again, that's when I'll spend more time talking about this. But thank you for adding that because I definitely understand what you're saying. These are the people that you're talking about. Is the people that Chris was talking about in the beginning? These are the exceptions to the rule. These aren't the rules, but because they're
You
so loud, everybody sees them. I got you, Chris. Hold on. Because they're so loud, everybody sees them, and everybody think that they are the majority. They're not the majority. So I want to make sure I say that. But again, thank you for that statement. And again, it's not 100% false. I definitely recognize that. This is the point I really wanted to get to because Cassandra asked a question, and I think I know where the question comes from. When teaching these young men on how to lose, how do you put into practice recovering from loss? And there's a second part versus reacting out of that emotion and shooting up everything. We ain't gonna talk about that part, but we yeah, for the sake of being safe with YouTube, we're just gonna keep it here. How do we put into practice recovering from the loss? So, gentlemen, I will turn that over to you guys.
Can I jump in? Because I think it's simple. Because Chris kind of made it easy earlier. He said what young men need is real simple. It's not much. L- Let them deal with the loss. Sometimes they don't need you to coddle them in their loss. They don't need you to come on, baby. It's gonna be all right. You get them next time. Sometimes you just gotta let them deal with it. If they never learn how to deal with it for themselves, they never learn how to deal with it for themselves. And so that's just something that I think is real important. That's why a lot of times, fathers be like, nah, let him, he all right. He fell, he's okay. Let him learn how to deal with that pain from falling. Let him learn how to get up, brush it off, and keep running. Because every time he hits an ouch in life, he's gonna come running looking for you to save him. And that does not create a productive male. So when we start talking about dealing with losses and dealing with emotions, it's simply letting the young man learn how to deal with it. And it's okay to direct him if he starts going all the way off on the deep end. Redirect him, but let him deal. Let him deal.
That's good.
This is what you do. This is how you put it into practice. You let them soak for maybe a day. You let them think about it, let it ruminate. And then you sit them down and you say, all right, son, you lost. Let's map this out. What do you think you could have done better? This, and this. All right. Let's work on this, and this. You already good at that. Let's work on this because this is how you lost. You can't do that again because you know better now. So let's work on that. We'll fit into other stuff that you know how to do and that you really enjoy later. But let's focus on the stuff that you hate, which is kind of why you lost. You understand what I'm saying? Let them work it out. They're smarter than what you give them credit for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Adrian agrees with that 100%. So thank you guys for that. And I don't disagree with anything that you guys said. Just wanting to press forward because the next talking point is self-esteem. We're going to have to step on the gas just a little bit so we can honor and respect you guys' time. So self-esteem again is it is a subjective perspective about how you esteem yourself, but ideally that esteem that you have about yourself comes from the response of the environment. So the way people respond to you, the things that people say to you, so forth and so on, that kind of helps you to understand how you esteem yourself. I used to say all the time when I was younger, I had low self-esteem. Why? Because it wasn't cool to be dark skinned in the 80s. That's why I keep saying that. So with that being said, gentlemen, what is the complex interplay between our self-esteem, self-identity, and self-concept?
I think some of the self-esteem problems come from what we were just talking about because we never had to endure. We never had to go through. Just like earlier today, one of my grandsons, he's one. He was running the kitchen and he fell, and his daddy went to go. I said, "No, leave him alone." Because when you pick yourself up, when you work out, like they used to say, no pain, no gain. When you put in the work for something, you have confidence in whatever you did in your work. But when you don't, when everything is given to you, or when you're allowed to be like with the complexion thing, that's something that no one instilled in you. That man, you're a beautiful black man until later on in life, probably. Until, like you say, Wesley Snipes came out with Blade, and then you thought
Shout
you
out
was
to
the man
Wesley
walking
Snipes.
around in the leather trench coat. But no, but you we with self-esteem, you have to develop people the ability to get themselves through problems, through situations, and as you there to help them, but you can't hinder them in helping them. You got to say, okay, no, you can like when you're in the gym, when you some people I can't do it. Yeah, you can, and then you get your finger on it and you picking it up and they done lifted it up. See, and then you encourage them. We got to encourage one another. We got to encourage these boys, these girls. We got to. I got a bunch of little chocolate granddaughters, and I tell them, you're a beautiful little chocolate thing. You're a beautiful young lady. I don't need them hearing that they're beautiful when they get 13, 14, 15 and they develop, and then some young Negro want to, stick and move. I need them to know they're beautiful even without his validation. They're beautiful in themselves and they don't need his encouragement. Had to throw that in there. My babies might be looking.
I hate to be disingenuous, But can I ask a question? Looking at this question, the way that it's worded, I don't understand the complexity behind it. All of these things begin with self. So it's kind of simple. Figure out self, then you can deal with the world. You understand what I'm saying? Figure out self, then you can deal with the world. Self esteem comes from you, self identity comes from you and what you think, self concept comes from you and what you think. If what you think isn't what you know you really are, you got some work to do, don't you? It's kind of simple. I don't see it as complex. I think we try to put too much into it, too much thinking about it. We got everybody else's voice in our head instead of shutting everybody up and saying, okay, what do I think? Do I even know what I think? Let's go figure out what I think without them. And then we'll come back and see if we can come to some type of mutual understanding about where I am and where they think I should be and how they're probably not going to be the same because you, not me. That's it.
I like what Chris said. He brought off something that I saw, but I didn't see. I wrote down self, self, self just now 3 times on my paper, and I still didn't even catch it. You know what I mean? So that's proof right there that a lot of things are really about perspective. And I think, what is the complex interplay between our self-esteem, self-identity, and self-concept is that all of these things kind of work together to kind of sort of complete our overall who we are. You know what I mean? Like it's very intertwined. It's a lot of different things that goes on in there. But really, like Chris said, and I'm not gonna make a really long talking point out of this. I think Chris did an excellent job of it, and Roland did as well. Um, just all together, man. Like self, self, self. Just even just leaving it at that is just good enough. So, like I said, I think they all work together to overall create a better person or human being in general, effectively.
I 100% agree. Y'all hit that one. It is all intertwined, right? You can't. The interplay is automatic, right? Your self esteem and your self identity would definitely play a part in your self concept, right? Which then plays a part in who you are in your community and so far and so forth in your family, however deep you want to take that. So I think it's important that we work on ourselves and not always. Somebody made a statement in the chat that they said that sometimes striving uh, sometimes overachieving or striving to be perfect stems from the need to please others. You don't need to you don't need to please others all the time. You just need to work on yourself for yourself so that you can be something that that is potable. You can be given out or give yourself out to your community, to your family, to your spouse, to your friends, to you, to your siblings, because you and I hate to say it like this because I don't want to make it sound bad, but you become worthless to others when you don't see the worth in yourself. So I I think it's just that simple.
That was good. I like that. Listen, I'm just going to give my thoughts on this real quick. Then we're going to dive into final thoughts because I want to respect everybody's time. Antoine Lyons, good to see you, brother. Listen, I want to appreciate everybody's perspective in the chat. Man, you guys are just putting out some great information. Adrian, I'm going to attempt to answer your question in conjunction with this one as well because I like the question that you kind of twisted up on us a little bit. So as it comes down to it, first and foremost, the question itself is what is the complex interplay between our self-esteem, self-identity, and self-concept? So how I identify myself creates the concept of who I am, and then the concept of who I am gives me permission to behave in a certain type of way, and then my behavior as it's received in the environment, it elicits a response from the environment, and then based upon said response, I start making little micro adjustments about myself or not. I just reject it, which one or the other, wherever that person is, right? So either I'm received or not received. I'm made to feel good about myself or not feel good about myself. And then that helps me to change the concept, which again in turn change my identity. So I think it was Emma said it's fluid. Absolutely. They're fluid concepts because they flow out and in constantly every time. Like I said, this thing right here is a big old sensor. Nobody cares what it looks like. The only person that cares what it looks like is the person who tries to use it as power. But this thing is a sensor. It is constantly sensing the environment. The environment is constantly giving you feedback based upon your behavior and what you're sensing. So you're sending energy out, it's sending energy back. So you're sensing and receiving, sending and receiving constantly. And that's what that looks like. Going back to Adrian's question, so what are the dangers of the interplay? The dangers of the interplay is that you don't have a healthy identity. Therefore, the environment constantly changes that identity. That's the dangers of it. So you go from person to person being just as pliable because of the response of said individual, because you don't have a healthy foundation that you built your identity off of. So great question, Adrian. I'm glad you asked that. And I hope I cleared that up. Listen, because of time, I do apologize. We did not get to social self. However, one of the things I want to make I appreciate that, bro. I know you're talking about yourself. I know you're talking about yourself. Hey, so one of the things I want to get to is these brothers' final thoughts, because these preachers have something to say. So, with that being said, we're going to start with the youngest, not the youngest. I'm sorry, keep doing that. We're going to start with my brother, the angry man himself. We're going to put him up front. Let me move this banner out your way first, sir. And then my brother Chris from across the table, you now have the floor.
My final thoughts are simple. Press rewind and watch everything that I said. The 4 keys to knowing your self-worth are simple, but they start with self. If you are not where you are supposed to be, or if you feel like the things that you have been taught, actually, you know what? I take that back. Since we're talking about men, if you think what you have been taught is not going to help you grow, then you need to learn something new. That would be my final thought.
Mine is going to be simple as well. I think it's very important that we understand the people that we allow in our space, right? Because there are people that are danger to your progression. There are people out there that is a danger to your progression. I'm always careful of people that knows everything you know, just one step better than you know it, know everything that you're trying to learn, and always got to let you know it. Because people, when you're dealing with your self-esteem, it's really easy for manipulative people to control the narrative of how you grow, and they will constantly keep you one step underneath them in your mind so that you'll never become better than them or reach your full potential. So I'm careful. I always, when you're dealing with yourself, be careful of your circle. Those people that you not only keep close, but the ones you call brother, and you let them know that how you admire them, because those people will take advantage of your growth process. They will take advantage. You need people that are like good soil to so that that seed that you're trying to plant in yourself can grow. The right stuff can grow up. You let bad people in your circle, a lot of weeds that could grow up and choke up your growth and stifle you. So that's all I got there.
All right. So, 4 keys to knowing your self worth. I wrote down my 4 keys for this week, part three. Number one, identify your values. I think it's very important for people to understand exactly what their own values are and why those values are your values. Number two, practice self compassion. That's something that was talked about in the show. Chris mentioned it, and I think that that's something that is something that I am continuing to work on. Number three is challenge negative self talk, and negative self talk is different than true self talk. So I know that's not the show for tonight. So that maybe um, don't worry about that. But either way, like I said, challenge negative self-talk in yourself. And then number four, set healthy boundaries. So to sum up, my 4 keys to knowing your self-worth is identify your values, practice self-compassion, challenge negative self-talk, and set healthy boundaries.
Man, I say educate yourself and build on your intellect, as well as don't just trust and take people's word for everything. Always check the checker. Always make sure whatever information is the correct information. And everything that's for somebody else may not be for you. So trial and error will allow you to have experiences, but never take your strengths and make them the focus. Focus on your weaknesses. Build your weaknesses as well as while you're working on your strengths, and that'll make you an overall better person. So when you're talking about self-worth, it comes through here as well as your body. And when you build in those two things, you will have no other choice but to have a sense of self-worth, because that confidence comes because you know the work that you've put in, you know the hours that you studied, the books that you've read. So when somebody tells you something that would normally blow you away with the wind, it won't happen because you have a sense of resolve, because you sat up there and you studied, you put in the work, you were dedicated to self gratification and development, not in just pleasure, but in developing you. And when you can do that, you'll realize that, man, I'm a pretty all right person, and I don't need somebody else to validate me because my work and my efforts do.
Man, listen, I think that these gentlemen have actually laid out a phenomenal blueprint over the course of these last 3 weeks when it comes down to having a good understanding of your self worth. If you have not had the opportunity to go back and listen to it, I challenge each and every one of you to go back and listen to each talking point, all 4 talking points, all the way up to this, all the way up to tonight. Then I am going to challenge you to take a long, hard look in the mirror and ask yourself, what is the one thing about my character that I can change right now so that I can be better for somebody else? I think that's the key. I think it was Brother Gaddy who mentioned about what we can do in our community. I think that is the key. Look in the mirror. And don't put this off on anybody else. This is not anybody else's responsibility but yours. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, what is the one thing I can do right now that can help make me a better person? And then I will also say, go back and look at the things that define your identity itself. I think that is the root cause of it all. I've always said that I don't care what issue that's going on in a person's life, it stems from their identity. So when you ask enough questions, you will get down to the root cause of the problem. Again, we spend too much time putting band-aids on symptoms. Forget the symptom. The symptom is only the first stage of the problem. Keep asking questions to get further down. And when you get down to the root cause of the problem, if you got to go talk to somebody that caused it, go talk to them. Don't judge them. Don't throw anything at them. Don't even be angry. Just have an honest conversation with that person. And then what you will find over the course of the time, that conversation may give you permission to actually come to some sort of emotional resolution, which is probably what you need to have a higher self-worth for yourself. Again, be careful because this can be the point where we start getting into imposter syndrome and all that other stuff. And the idea is not to look at yourself as being higher than anybody else, but for you to esteem other people higher than yourself. And you cannot do that when you are always trying to make somebody else serve you. So with that being said, I mean, I just want to, again, throw it back after these gentlemen, man. I don't think you will find a better panel on YouTube, on Facebook, or any other platform out there. So I just want to make sure that I publicly appreciate each and every last one of these guys. Each one of them brings something special and unique to this conversation, and I want to let them know that I appreciate them, just like we all appreciate you guys in the chat, the best chat in all of social media. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Have a great rest of your Friday evening and an even better weekend. Until next Friday at 8 p.m., Hearts of Men Podcast.